I would tell most people out there, you're probably in a better spot than you think, and you can turn it around faster than you think. You're really in control of it. You can switch from 0 to 100 real quick with staff, with the quotes per day, with the premium sold. It can happen within a good month or two. You can really change the whole culture of your agency. I've seen so many good agents, even good agents over time, go from all-time highs to then they have lulls because something happened in our industry back to great where they rebounded with stuff.
Got questions, we bring the facts. From proven pros who walk the tracks. Business life, no smoke, just flames. Ask the experts, David Williams brings the game.
Good morning, Insurance Syndicate. Today, I have the great pleasure of welcoming a truly dynamic leader in the insurance and financial services industry. This is Keith Collins. Keith was born in Stillwater, New York, not North Carolina. I don't think there's a Stillwater, North Carolina. And I'll tell you, I've been watching Keith for a long time now, and his journey has been one of continuous growth, adaptation, and success. After moving to St. Louis, he began his career as a producer in 2013 before transitioning into business consulting and later becoming a financial advisor with Edward Jones. However, his passion for agency ownership led him back to Farmers Insurance, where he became an agency owner and in 2021 took on the role of district manager in Minnesota. Keith is driven by a deep commitment to helping agents realize their full potential, not just as sales professionals, but as true business owners. His philosophy is rooted in mentorship, having benefited from the guidance of many influential leaders throughout his career. Now he's focused on paying it forward, ensuring that more people in the industry receive the same level of support and development that helped shape his success. With an ambitious personal goal of reaching $1 billion in premium, Keith's passion, leadership, and strategic mindset continue to make a lasting impact. We're super excited to have him here today to share his insights, his expertise, and his knowledge. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Keith Collins. Hey, Keith, welcome.
Thank you, man. What an intro. Thank you. I need to carry you with me everywhere. That's an amazing.
Bring me along. I'm glad to join. And you know, your journey is super interesting, right? Because you got into the industry and then you've been, on the side of working within the agency on the ground level, and now, overseeing and helping support many more agents from a completely different perspective. So we're definitely going to get into sort of the perspective, the lessons, and everything that, you've learned being a heavy hitting district manager for Farmers. But before we get there, can you just kind of walk us through your journey from being a producer in 2013 to becoming a district manager with Farmers in 2021?
Yeah, it almost all didn't happen. It was between this and phone sales, and I won't say what company, but it was shared commission, and I was like, no, I want to keep my own. So that was really like of all things, the deciding factor for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as I became a producer and really enjoyed the sales aspect because I sold cars back in upstate New York, really enjoyed the aspect of, wow, I'm getting to talk. I get to put in the work and see enough people to say the right things. And as it was going on there, I realized, okay, this is all controlled by my effort. Like I had never had a job like that before. It was always like, hey, you're dependent on what comes in, or you're dependent on this or that. So it really changed my whole mindset right there. And I was lucky at a early age to be paired with somebody like Matt Wolk, where it's just he has such high standards for himself and others, and just like has excellence all around him. So learning from him and really growing that way. He was nice enough to introduce me to Mark Lee, where I became a business consultant.
Hmm.
And again, another great leader. It's like an embarrassment of riches for me when I be like just being surrounded with these guys, because he is one of the best human beings you'll ever meet. Through anybody that knows Mark would run through a wall for Mark. And really, when it comes down to it, I took a lot from both those guys, and I'm like, okay, well, this is what the industry needs, right? Those guys are filling the gap in our industry because so many times it is just here you go, figure it out, right? Like, how many times in insurance have you heard that story, and then somebody's out of our industry a year or two later?
Go get him,
That,
Tiger.
right. So my thought process is, wow, these guys do such a good job at everything from supporting So anytime there's a question, there's an answer to spelling it out, right? Here's step by step on how to become a great agent. Here's what's required. Here's all the different options for you too. So one thing I did as a producer that glad to this day that I think really helped me was get my securities license. Right? I don't think enough staff members really dive into that realm, let alone agency owners. So it was a great thing.
Wow, that's incredible. And I don't know. You said Mark
Mark Lee, yeah,
Mark Lee.
that's a name.
Yeah, if you're watching this live, any of these names that Keith is dropping, finding the right mentors, finding good leaders, good people to surround yourself with is super important. And I was very familiar with Matt Wolk, obviously, and the influence he's had as well. So
Yeah, St. Louis has just gotten so lucky with those two. Man, they're set.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So here's something that I'm curious about, because you have a very unique perspective. Producer, agency owner, financial advisor, district manager. So you've kind of been through the entire spectrum, from being in the role to leading the role to advising people that lead the role. So if you could go back, to 2013, 2014 with the mentorship you had and what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self when you first started as an agent? Like that first 90 days to a year, what advice would you give yourself that you think would have made, you've obviously been very successful, but what would have made you more successful faster knowing what you know now?
That I think that's the funny part of this. Like, if I went back and told my younger self, like, hey, you need to own an agency faster and you need to delegate and that, like back then I was so obsessed with selling, right? When you're 21, 22 years old, you're like, I'm beating these 40-year-olds on selling. This feels great. Like your ego starts to go like this, right? Where I self-admittedly, if I went back and told myself that, like, "Hey, you need to go do this," I'd brush
Hmm.
it off and be like, "No, no, no, look at me, I'm doing this." I
Hmm.
probably wouldn't have been ready to receive that advice, and that's where, again, where I think you said it perfectly, having the right mentors that really not breadcrumb you the right way, but are protecting you from yourself a lot of times is
Mhm.
huge, because 'cause they'll put you in the right path, the right guidance, and everything will happen in the right time.
100%. It's funny when I converse and talk with David, founder of Team Hired, and he was a former mega agent with Allstate. He started with absolutely nothing, zero policies, started scratch, ended up building about a 25 million a year agency. And the one thing he always says is, like, you have to go through that front line, be the best salesperson in your office, do the job yourself, because how are you supposed to lead other people if you don't? And so it's like, first you have to be the soldier, then you get to be the captain, then you get to be, the colonel, then you get to be the president. Like, but it's this progression. So I see where probably that was a huge advantage for you, is like, I'm going to become the best producer I can be, so that when it comes time to lead other people, I know what I'm doing. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so another question that I'd written down to bring to this call is, what do you think some of the biggest misconceptions are that new agents have about running their agency? Assumptions they make, things that after a month, 3 months, 6 months, they go like, wow, I thought I got this, but I didn't. And I'm kind of digging for, like, whether it's a mistake, a misconception, something that you commonly see with new agents where they have an aha moment, maybe sometimes too little, too late, but hopefully for those listening, just giving them some advice on, like, if you're new to this game, if you're newer to this game, what misconceptions should you try to avoid and just move past immediately?
Yeah, I would say most new agents have struggled with buying back their time, and a lot of them, I think, get in the habit of thinking, "Oh, well, if I sell a policy myself, that's going to be the most profitable policy because there's no labor cost associated with it, right?" I would say that's the wrong train of thinking, 100%, like flipped, because what you want is to establish a business, right, with staff that helps you sell policies and over time really grow that. So it really stunts people's growth when they get into the full-time selling mode, because then they're not really doing a business, they're doing a sales job, let's call it like it is.
Hmm.
So in my role, it's really showing them like, hey, here's the merit of growing a business and here's the things we have to do to really grow it. One of my favorite books is 10x is easier than 2x. And many times when you can show somebody, hey, here's what a 10 million premium agency is doing, 25 million premium agency, and so on, they act completely different than somebody that's at the ground level, right? And it's really at the ground level, the zero premium, being able to have that mindset of, okay, I'm going to do the things that a 5 million premium agency would. Even if the cash flow is
Mm.
not there yet, you got to really, there's two ways to make money in our industry, and it's borrow it or produce it. And you got to do one usually to make the other, or vice versa. So, and,
And that's so true. I had a review call. I was working in a big training organization with Grant Cardone, where we sold sales training for Grant, and his vice president, now president Jared, would do these monthly reviews with every producer. He'd sit down with us, and he'd spend some time working through like where are you trying to go? How do we help get you there? And he asked me what some of my goals were, and of course, 25 years old, I'm like, well, I want to be a millionaire, and I want this, and I want that. And he goes, "You want to be a millionaire?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, are you are you a millionaire?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Wrong answer." He's like, "You have to be the millionaire before you get the $1 million." And that
mm,
just that phrase, you have to be the millionaire before you get the $1 million. You have to be the $10 million agent before you build the $10 million agency is like, what time am I waking up in the morning? Who do I need to hire? What solutions? What am I researching? What am I putting together? What am I willing to invest into this thing? So that really resonates a lot with me, Keith. Just the idea that like you have to operate like that person, because if you don't, you're never going to get there. Which is simple, but it's also complicated, right? Because it's simple in the fact that sure you could just do it. It's complicated that we all have to get over our own garbage of like, I don't know if I can do it, and it's like no, you've got to operate that way now. So um, I want to get into some tactics because I love theory. I love talking high level,
mm,
but I think there's a lot of agencies going into this new year saying, well, look, like for those captive agents, there's bigger goals than ever. There's obviously pricing pressures. There's turmoil in the industry. There's new products. There's new competitors. And I always look at the lifeblood of any agency's growth starts at the top of the funnel. How many quotes can we get out? How many people can I get my team talking to? And if you don't get that piece right, it doesn't matter how good you are at closing or retaining clients, that growth trajectory. You talk about a $5 million agency, to get there any sooner than the next 20 years, you need a lot of volume coming through your front door.
mhm.
So with you working with so many different agents and just your own experience, if you were to list out maybe your top 2 or 3 most effective prospecting, lead generation, quote generating strategies that you've seen work for agents, like if you just surveyed and looked at your top, let's say 3 agents in your district, what are these guys and girls doing right now to effectively increase quote volume and hopefully do it cost effective?
Man, we're talking my language. So I love action. So the first one I would say is live transfers, but I want to dive deeper into that because I think many times there's a misconception. It's like there's data leads that are cheaper,
Mhm.
and then there's live transfers, right? I would tell most people buy your ideal customer, right? You can buy production in a sense where if you have the right staff members and you have the right type of marketing, you can get to the right type of customer. I've always found live transfers are a way to do that because you're basically outsourcing your marketing department, right? Where you're feeding your sales department, and that's a huge recruitment tool in itself. So then the next piece I would tell someone is, okay, you have a live transfer. Are we doing standard auto? Are we doing home? What is your niche that you want to really invest in and grow in over time, and really dive in there? So that's the first one that I'd really recommend, especially for most smaller agencies. The price tag might give them sticker shock. One of my best agents, Josh Arnold, the other day said, "Well, when you're small, every molehill is a mountain. Like a $500 decision will make or break you." Right, and I've been watching a lot of Dan Martell too, and
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, it gives you problems when if you have $10,000 problems, you're probably making X amount of revenue. If you have $100,000 problems, you're making X. So when it comes down to it, really getting these guys in the frame of mind faster to buy the right type of leads is huge. I would say also community marketing and being creative. So again, I'm referencing a lot of books, but Day Trading Attention by Gary Vaynerchuk. You can do it both in the digital world and in the real world, where I'd say attention is really today's currency, many times than not. And what I see with so many agents, again, talking mistakes, is they'll show up to these nonprofit, the Chamber of Commerce's, those activities, and they'll get the same basket everybody else has. And you know what I'm talking about? It's the muffin basket or the booze basket that everybody brings, and it's priced at $40, and somebody bids on it to be nice at $20. And if you can really separate yourself there, right? I have one agent that dresses up a teddy bear, puts it in one of those kids drivable cars
Mm.
or like Kawasaki's. Those are amazing. And the first thing that all the nonprofits and the chambers want to do is put that front and center. That's huge. So I would tell somebody if you're doing community marketing, just make sure you're separating yourself a little bit. Go that extra mile. Like do what you would want to see and really drive those eyeballs in whatever you would want to do. Just being creative and being yourself is huge.
That's great. I absolutely love that. And it's not that expensive, right? A couple $100, but you're separating yourself with creativity. And you're right, that creativity separates you. It's not just the same as we have the cheapest price. It's value, it's brand, it's really footing yourself into the community. So I love that you bring up the community marketing. Um, and then I want to talk about penetrating, books of business, because talk to hundreds of agents every month that say like, hey, we have so much data. We have all of these customers that we've sold in the past. We've got all sorts of people, sitting here that we can cross sell. We can go penetrate more, maybe life insurance if that's a goal for the agency, or we can take our auto customers and we can try to go out there and, earn their home business or get a referral. And I'm just curious, how do you think that agencies can become better at cross selling their book of business? Is it training with their team? Is it a specific strategy? Is it getting with a coach and getting certain scripts in place? Is it a new calling technology? What are you seeing the best cross-selling agents do these days to be successful with that?
And you ask good questions. So when it comes down to it, I think there's two things. Like you said, the technology is huge. There's so many good ones out there. Like I have a friend, Craig Bender, with Insure You Too, and that is some slick software. If you guys ever get to see it, like helps prompt somebody on the call to really bring up the right things. Now, I will say on the people aspect, what I would say is more empowering people. So whoever's empowered to have that conversation is gonna have it. The In our industry, let's call it like it is. There's probably 60-70% of agents not having those conversations that are having very transactional conversations where it's like auto and home, and maybe even when they're trying to cross sell to being transactional, whether it's life insurance, whether it's retirement or whatever. You really want to start with the purpose of whatever you're talking about and really design it around them from the start. Give them an experience, not just a receipt, if you will.
Hmm.
Because if they're having an experience with you and they're going through it, they're really understanding, okay, this is why I have my auto insurance. Like they feel good about it. Chances are they're not going to shop it. Same with their home insurance, same with life insurance. It's all down the board, but it starts with that person having that conversation. I feel a lot of I say a lot of many agents aren't empowered to have that conversation because they either don't feel confident enough or they just feel okay, it has to be the agency owner, it can't be staff members. It's like no, anybody can have that conversation, and as long as you're really tailoring it to that person and giving them the true time of day and going over what matters to them, you're so much better off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. It's like starting with, yeah, the storyline, the why, the pain point, and really doing it for the right reasons. Getting sold on why we do this in the first place versus just transactional, like you said. I love that. Well, look, I want to transition. It's, we talk a lot about production and agency tactics, but you bring a really unique perspective because you've been on both sides of the fence, both as a producer, agent owner, and also as a leader and as a district manager. So here's what I want to try to do. I want to see if there's one person out there, whether they're watching live or they're watching the rerun, that someday is going to say, the reason that I decided to become an agency owner and graduate from just becoming a producer is because I saw this guy, Keith Collins, and he told me why it made sense. So here's what I'd like to try is, if you can picture there's one audience member out there that maybe they've been producing for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They're talented. They have inherent leadership ability. and they're not going to really be satisfied fully in this career until they open their own doors and they have their own agency. What would be your like high level 60-second elevator pitch for somebody who's been sitting on that for like too long? It's been 3 months, 6 months, a year, it's 2 years later, and their husband or wife is still like, when are you going to do that? You keep talking about owning your own agency. Like, what would you tell that person?
Oh man. Oof. I got chills when you said that, by the way. So when when it comes down to it, I would tell anybody, act as if. We talked about it before. Be the leader now, right? I think I could have done so much more as an agent and been an even better leader for the people. And I get the itch sometimes, even to be an agent. So it's not about the title. It's really being that person from the start, really helping somebody. I would tell anybody, if you're looking to get into field leadership or that, start by just doing the things that you think would help an agency out, right? I dive into cost per acquisition of customer. That, like, I still feel like an agent at heart.
Hmm.
So when it comes down to it at an agent level, I can talk about, hey, this is going to make you money, and then empathize, but not get stuck in the muck or mire. So going back to, if, what would I tell a person? It's a start where you're at, be who you are, but help others, right? I think so many can get focused on themselves, and even if they're super successful, and I've been in this spot where you're running hard and you're running after goals, man, it loses some of its steam because numbers and trophies don't light you up. I don't care what anybody says.
Hmm.
It, at the end of the day, if you're helping somebody else out, like that's another level. Because yeah, if somebody ever said that to me, hey, I started insurance because of Keith, or like that to me is worth so much more, like, than any ring or trophy or glass ornament, but whatever have you. That is fulfilling. And when you start to help see, you see the light bulb. Part of what my job is right now, I get to see somebody's first policy, their first staff hired, their first terminations. Like, I get to see their struggles too. So it's being with them along the journey, and the more people you can help on their journeys. I mean, it's a Dale Carnegie or Andrew Carnegie. I should know this. But you help enough people, people will help you.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So it's like, hey, if you if you're thinking about it, like this is your chance to go from just getting like a monetary commission to like a lifelong commission, like a heartfelt commission that is far, far beyond money. That is super motivating and would be a great reason for somebody to go like, you're right. Like there's only so many sales commissions I can make before I need more purpose in my life. And I love that. I love that perspective that it's not just about the finances. It's also about just what are you actually contributing? What are you going to get out of this life? What can you do to lift other people up? Um, and then, you know, from you being in a district role, I'm sure that you see sort of a range of different agents. You see the ones that are really just on the fence line struggling. You see the ones that are just kind of average, middle of the pack, doing just fine. And then you see these really heavy hitting agents that just absolutely crush it month over month. From a bird's eye view, from your perspective, what are the common traits of like the most successful, the top 1 or 2 agents that you oversee that's consistent across the board?
Well, they're business owner minded first, right? So they're trying to expand the business. They're not trying to get the top sales numbers, if you will. They're trying to really put the pieces in place to be successful.
Hmm.
I'd say the next is they're very brass tacks. So one thing that I'm known for in my district, and probably the other districts as well, is I tell it like it is. I usually say, hey, this is exactly how this is probably going to play out, but you still need to do X, Y, and Z, right? So sometimes somebody's worried about losing money on a staff member, and I'm like, yeah, you might go through 2 or 3 staff members to get to the right one. So it's knocking those hurdles down, just being honest with them, right?
Mhm.
Letting them know, hey, this might not go as planned. It probably won't, knowing statistics. So knowing that, but still doing it, that's powerful. And that's when you really see good agents become great. And then agents that might have been teetering on, just maybe doing well in our industry and or losing money, now they become great as well, because they really buy in to systems, processes, and really scaling it at that point.
That's beautiful. And so on that note, right? Like if the best heaviest hitting agents are business minded first, They've got systems and processes that, despite the emotion of the day, the emotion of the month, or whatever, they stick to it and they stick to a process. They're very tight on the way that they're actually going to execute. And it sounds like to me, once they make a decision to jump, they're going to jump. They're not going to waver too long in that decision, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's letting them know too, once they've made the decision, even when the bad things happen, it's like holding that umbrella for them, right? So when that staff member quit, when that they didn't hit the sales number and they had to fire them, or let's say on the other end they tried a groundbreaking lead system, because how many have we heard about out there where it's like the latest and greatest? These leads are better than any leads. It's call it like it is, right? When that doesn't work and they go back and it's really sticking through the dip, if you will, and going through, making sure the thing happens. Because the people in our industry aren't the richest that have the most money to throw at it. They're the people that just salt through the bad days, the storms, if you will. I know before we got on here, we were talking about California and Florida and some of these other places, and some of the best people come out of those environments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because they've had to weather a storm that other people haven't. So when they see other conditions in other states, they're like, "Man, this is nice."
Man, that's so true. And that is like probably one of the biggest blessings any business owner will go through, is like the trial of their life, because it'll completely rewire them for the rest of their time. And and then they're not going to be just like chasing an emotion. They're going to be able to look at that and go like, I've been through this before and I've been through much worse. So you're right. Like some of those agents out there, some of these tougher states, tougher situations, like if they could just see it as a blessing of like, hey, the other agents in the easier states, they're only getting to bench 100 pounds. You're benching 300 and it hurts, and it might even fall in your chest every once in a while. But guess what? You're going to have like the biggest muscles in the entire room by the time that situation's done with you. So I love that perspective. So what, on the opposite side of that, let's talk about some of the lower performing agencies, right? And the ones who just month over month seem to be in a cycle of like, oh, I didn't quite make it. I didn't quite make it. Like, what are the biggest pitfalls that you're seeing that causes agents to like literally fail in the first few years? Fail, like not even like underperform. What are the things, if you said like, oh yeah, like this is the common, if I see one, two, or three things happen, that's going to be the leading causes of why an agency literally fails or goes out of business. Like what are you seeing out there?
Well, I actually do this as an exercise for most people, because I usually say, "Hey, can you write down the three reasons you'll fail this year?" After we do like 12 long questions about, "Hey, tell me about your biggest strength, biggest weakness." I always have them write down the why they're gonna three reasons why they're gonna fail, and I'm like, if you're not one of those, then you're lying to yourself, right? Because it's about mindset. And when they go down to it, it's mindset about money. So if you're not willing to spend $200 on a job ad or $200 on leads, it's like, yeah, this industry is probably not going to be a great fit for business ownership, right? There's lots of sales positions out there. When it comes down to the mindset about teamwork or how to build it, there's so many things, and I coach a lot of people on different aspects of this. But I would say the first, without fail, the defeated mindset, the one that wants to cut corners and, like, let's say there's a requirement out there for a certain amount of licensed staff and they just get people on paper. That's not why a company is requiring it, right? They're requiring it because they want to see good productive bodies in the seats. When it comes down to it, if you're cutting corners there and trying to circumvent things, that you're really circumventing yourself at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So on that side, right? I've seen that happen. And I understand if somebody needs to open doors to hit a deadline, maybe they do that
Yeah.
once just to get over a hurdle. But as a long-term strategy, just to have a number makes absolutely no sense. But you're right, a lot of people will do that. And when it comes to that team environment and like people getting the right players on their team from the start, what do you typically recommend to your agency owners when it comes to what attributes and traits they need to be looking for when they're in interviews these days and looking to hire that next team member?
So that's a great question. The question I usually use to figure out, my assistant district manager, Jess, says it the best way: don't use the red flags as blindfolds, because I was guilty of that as charged for the longest time. I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, well, this will be such a good story when they write. And it's like, no, a lot of people are in their position because they've created that position. So it's
Mm,
being cognizant of that, right? But when it comes down to it, I always ask now, what do you most struggle with? And just leave it at there, go silent. And people will either bury themselves and they'll be like, I don't like my old employer because this, that, and I wasn't set up for success in this. And it's like, oh wow, okay, I'm learning a lot about you right now. And then there's others that will really go deep and they'll say, well, yeah, I struggle with procrastination and like this, and you'll see full ownership there. And I admire that. Like when I see, hey, here's some things, and it's not those fake interview questions. Like, what do you, tell me about a time you struggle with something, or what's your weakest point? And people say, well, I work too much, or this or that. Like, it's if you ask somebody what they struggle with most, you get honest answer after honest answer. I'd tell anybody to mix that into the interview process. If you, and I don't know, I'm not, I should put the disclaimer out. I'm not HR, but I've had so many good discussions with somebody about what they struggle with when it comes to the workplace and dynamics. It usually tells me that when it comes to characteristics, kind of going back to your question,
Hmm.
it's it's all about drive, right? I need somebody, whether how bubbly they are, attention to detail or structure routine, that can all be great, but drive without anything else can overcome all those. And I would say if somebody has drive, they're willing to stick it out. They're willing to figure out how to become bubbly. They'll figure out how to be attentive to detail. They'll figure out all the other things. So that's my number one characteristics, if you will.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm taking a lot of notes on my end. I hope our audience members are as well. There's something about putting it on paper with ink that just starts to cement it into your head.
I'm same.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is training as well. And I'll give a real quick background. Working in the training industry for about 3.5 years, I got to see people that had literally the same training content. They had the same scripts, they had the same access to the same videos, they had the same access to the same trainers, right? And one business would excel with their training. It's like their people retained, they used the training, they got better month over month. And then another business with literally the same access to the same content would fail with it. And I often found that it had to do with routines and how they structured training. Was it a daily exercise? Were they doing role play? Were they doing a group meeting? How often were they getting together? How did they actually roll that training out? So when you look at, the most successful agencies from a training perspective, what would you prescribe as like the ideal daily or weekly training routine, literally from like a time perspective, right? Like, oh, they would do this in the morning, or they would have this every week, or this would be a regular exercise that they would get their team involved in to actually get that training material like working in their agency, as opposed to just being like a boring training that nobody pays attention to.
Yeah, man. Again, another good question. So, being up here in Minnesota, I'll use the analogy of warming up your car. So every morning, it's nicer to go into a warm car. So I tell anybody role play. Like I see 9 times out of 10 with these large, great agencies with good habits, they're role playing every morning. And then they're having a morning meeting. And I'm a big fan of the KPIs because I equate that to more your road signs, your guardrails, right? Because if your staff members and team members don't know that, hey, 10 quotes a day is the standard, or 20 quotes a day, whatever your standard is, or maybe it's premium sold in your agency, they don't know that standard for you, how are they supposed to meet it, right?
Hmm.
So first is showing them how and getting them prepared, and even throwing them fastballs before they see the ones without as much speed because you're trying to throw them for a loop. Then going into the KPIs, and then really get them off to the day, and just I call it little personal touches throughout the day, just saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" Like, "Hey, that was an awesome call." Like, celebrate, because one thing we have here at the district office is we have cowbells. So
Hmm.
anytime somebody had a great interview with somebody, or somebody got appointed with an agent, we get excited and we ring the cowbell. And so the funny part is, you might hear a cowbell go off here. I don't know what it'll be about, but I'll be excited. I'm like, something good happened. And then somebody comes out and tells the group, hey, here's what just happened. And it's fun to tell customers or whoever too, hey, having that type of environment, celebrating those wins, because now everybody's excited and it's like, oh, well, now I want to try to get my cowbell to ring, and I want to get the next one. And yeah, no, I'm rambling a little bit, but as you can
No,
tell,
you're
we live
you're
about money.
great. No, like I know exactly what you're talking about too. And some people, for them, it's a gong or it's one of those little scratch cans. But yeah, that culture, celebrating the wins, that noise in the agency, that energy in the air. Like, I feel like if any highly successful agency I've walked into, it doesn't feel like a business office. It feels like I'm walking into like a training gym for an NFL team. You know what I mean? There's that athletic sort of like sport to it within
Yeah,
the company.
yeah, definitely more laid back, where everybody's doing their job. Everybody knows the mission, right? I find in the best agencies, everybody knows the mission, like so much so that they're probably taking it home with them. They take pride in it, and that's so important because we're going to spend most of our lives and most of our hours of the day behind a chair or with our workmates, and really spending that time on that common purpose is huge. And not to go too deep, but if you're able to do that, and people will push that much harder, especially if it's a good purpose, like on a district level, it's changing somebody's livelihood, helping them establish a business in their community. Like obviously I'm biased, but like what better job is there than that? Like I don't have to clean toilets for a living. I don't have to pick up trash. Like I get to help somebody make money, impact their community, and then hire others to really help scale their business. I don't know. I'm biased. Again, I love it.
Tough to beat, tough to beat. Um, well, if you could try to go back to a time, and I'm a little bit crazy, but I'm picturing you talking to an agent at midnight, right? And they're really struggling. And it might have not been at midnight. It might have been at 2 in the afternoon, but I'm
I was
sure you've
probably
had at least
Oh yeah, it
could
was
be
probably 2 in the morning.
could be 3 in the morning. So you've had a maybe one, maybe two, maybe 10, maybe a dozen calls like that, where somebody was just, they were in the thick of it. They had setback after setback. Maybe they were about to throw in the can. Maybe they were facing, like, I've seen people face like potential financial reset, like disaster, right? And I'd love to hear a story where you've seen like a dramatic turnaround, somebody that was in the thick of it and where most people would just fall under the weight of it. Somebody like that you've seen sort of just literally go from like the bottom of the bottom, almost failing out. And what did those conversations look like? And like, what did they do to pull themselves out of that rut and turn it around?
Oh man. Yeah, this one, yeah, so I get a little bit emotional, but so
And we
this
didn't plan
agent,
these questions, by the way, just for the audience. I told Keith, I said, you don't know what's going to come. So
no. So that this one's hit me like a ton of bricks. Yeah, this agent, so he had his whole resignation letter typed up, ready to send in a text message and then put on to the dashboard there. And he didn't send it. And he let me know like the day after. He's like, "Hey, I had this all ready to go. Here it was." And he's like, "But I want to make sure I'm giving this the fair chance. I'm a year or so in." And I, like him and I had a lot of heart to hearts like that week, the next week, the week after, like almost daily. I would talk to him just on my drives. And what we really centered around was, hey, you're doing the things now. You're hiring the people, because before he was struggling to get people in there in his agency and hit the goals that he wanted to hit. The next piece is he had a lot of people. Well, heck, those people were averaging 0 to 1 quotes a day, and I'm like, "What are they doing with the other 8 hours of their day, right?" And he's like, "Well, I'll start tracking that." And so we started tracking it. Sure enough, within 2 months, he had a bunch of protege slash apprentices, and just really, really doing well. Came to the top of the leaderboard after that. And now he's trying to get 50 staff, and he's just he's going to be an industry giant. He doesn't know it. If you talk to him, he has the demeanor of Eeyore, and I love him to death. So hopefully he doesn't kill me for saying that, but he just be like, oh, okay, like whatever. But you
wow.
ever see his agency? Everybody that's been through his agency is a big fan of him. I mean, he's helped people start their careers now. Like he is doing rock star status, and he's ready to take off. It's so exciting to me to see a story like that. I mean, I guess I know he had to go through that in order to get where he is now, but a part of me wishes he didn't have to go through it, right? But I guess if you're gonna make somebody patient, you make them wait. If you're gonna make him resilient, you give him hurdles to go through. So he's done all that, and yeah, it's gonna be top of our industry. I have no doubt.
Yeah. So like what I heard was, and by the way, that is an incredible story. I really appreciate you sharing that. Tactically, strategically, I'm thinking what I heard was one of the things you had him do very first was go dig deep all the way down to like the number. Look at the numbers, look at your people, look at quote volume, like start at the base of that. It's very tangible. It's not a theoretical, esoteric type of like, mindset thing even. It's like literally go look at that number and focus on fixing that and turning that around. And then in addition to that, would you say there were any other key traits, key things that like there's somebody watching this that's in that moment right now. Like, what would you tell somebody here other than go look at the number and start to work at the baseline and work this thing from the bottom up? Any other advice that you would see just from his experience that somebody here might need to hear today?
Oh yeah, I would tell most people out there you're probably in a better spot than you think, and you can turn it around faster than you think. You're really in control of it. You can switch from 0 to 100 real quick with staff, with the quotes per day, with the premium sold. It can happen within a good month or two. You can really change the whole culture of your agency. I've seen so many good agents, even good agents over time, go from all-time highs to then they have lulls because something happened in our industry back to great where they rebounded with stuff. But it really starts in between the years where, hey, you're in control of this. I think so many people need to hear that is you're in control of your situation. You can make this happen, and you will make this happen if you want to.
Hmm.
Hey, how bad do you want this?
Hmm. Man, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I want to try something a little different. And that is, I've found with most very successful leaders, agency owners, et cetera, like yourself, there's usually like a passion set. There's something that they're maybe an expert in, like a true expert, or they have a great passion for. Like if you ask me, right, I'm gonna light somebody up about digital marketing, organic marketing, hitting a very high outflow volume of marketing every day, and like I'm a big guy on pipeline, and I could
Mhm.
talk about that all day long. If somebody were just to say, hey, Keith, 5 minutes on stage, something that you're extremely passionate about that you feel like is not talked about enough. It's something that you've seen and you're like, this is just the truth. If somebody were to grasp this, they would turn around their business, but not enough people talk about it. What does that look like for you? And I know it's very open-ended, but I'm really curious, like, what is it? What is that thing that stands out as like, hey, this is something people need to hear?
Yeah, for me, it's thinking big. I think it's thinking big and the value of a team member. Two different things. But the first one, thinking big, I know that I tend to think bigger and both to my like happiness and success and both to my detriment because sometimes I say goals out loud that will get me laughed at. I'm self-aware enough to know that and in groups I have no cares about it. I'll say my goals here's what I'm aiming for, here's what I want to run after. And I'm gonna keep thinking bigger. And I'd say the other one would be the value of a staff member, right? So I don't know that
Mm.
so many people know how fast something can turn with the right staff member and the value, right? You can put the monetary break even point on it, but that's going to translate more than money, right? Because if you walk into an agency without any staff members and you walk into it with 5 or 6,
Mhm.
I know the quality of that agency owner's life is probably different, right? I tell the story of the 20-person staff agency all the time because usually in a 20-person staff agency, well, that agency owner might not be doing a ton quoting, maybe next to none servicing. And you go down the list, the number's close to zero, right? Well, in a one-man band where they're doing it all themselves, they're doing 100% of the service, 100% of the sales. And even if you have 2 or 3 in there, that number's still not zero. And it's not even close to a comfortable amount, right? Because you got all that weight on you at that point, both financial, the management piece. So that's where I'd say I've had pushback before where having more people isn't less work. I would say it forces you to the right work if you're doing it the right way.
Oh, I like that. And look, on the first one about thinking big and throwing out big goals,
Mm.
when you say them out loud like that, it makes them real, and it's not just sitting up here. And I respect you for that. And secondly, I don't think there's anybody that's ever laughed at a goal that's achieved it. Usually, it's just people that they're making reasons to not do it themselves. So that's all right, and it's okay to get some of that noise for sure, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why, like, you'll get the opposite here, which is you have this ambitious goal of reaching $1 billion in premium. And I'm just curious kind of what you've mapped out in your head on the necessary steps to achieve that.
I mapped it out a few different ways because the one thing I know about it is it's probably not going to look exactly like I planned it.
Mhm.
I've known that from this journey. So when it comes down to it with the $1 billion premium, I want to get to 100, 200 agents if I can. Or like if it's 100 that are 10 staff deep and they're all 10 million premium and just playing that forward. However it looks like, I know that I'm going to be adaptable along the way. But the thing I want to keep front and center, reason why I want a billion premium so bad is because I know how many lives I would have impacted at that point. Right? I know that heck there'll be several hundred people within the district that will be a collaborative family that'll be sharing marketing tactics. They'll be sharing here's how to onboard. Heck, I give my guys credit. They've kind of created spots in their agency that don't fit on paper yet. So whether
Mm.
it's like recruiting aspects and stuff, and I don't think you see that many places. So wanted to I don't I say it not for like I know it can sound cringy at times, like, hey, we're all a family, but I want it to be an environment where somebody's so excited to be around their other people in the district and share and be excited to see, oh wow, that person had that success. How are you doing it? And some good back and forth banter.
That's beautiful. I love that, man. When you think about achieving that, right? There's obviously individual agency owners that are going to need to grow, change, adapt. And there's some I'm sure you have that they're not on autopilot, but when you look at them, you're like, they're well taken care of. But then you've got these others that, you're working on all the time, and you're working with them, and you're looking for turnarounds in their agency so they can get on that wavelength. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about how agents operate today, what would it be?
And just mindset. Again, if you have the right mindset, because I necessarily wouldn't even give them all the knowledge. Like I know there's some that know how to run an agency, they just don't, right? But when if they have the right mindset, they're ready to run after it, do the right things, and hold tough when times are tough. They're gonna be fine, and they're gonna be good, and they're gonna grow. But yeah, I mean, I probably sound like a broken record, but it all starts between the ears.
Hey, I got a good buddy who's a venture capitalist, and I take everything he says with more than a grain of salt because he's been real successful. He was one of the co-founders of what's it called, CarMax, the
Wow.
car company, and he always says truth comes in short sentences. So when I hear highly successful people say the same thing over and over and over again, it comes over with simplicity. I'm like, that's consistent with what he's telling me. So I don't think you're a broken record. I just think you're consistent with things that work. So, um, so with a few more minutes here, I want to transition to talk real quickly more on like the personal side of your life, because this is not just like business and then you've got your life outside of business. Like for a lot of us, it's all kind of one big enchilada, right? And it all fits together. And
Mhm.
I'm curious, maybe one or two positive changes that you've made, decisions you've made, things that have maybe changed in the way that you interact with your family, your community, your well-being, whether it's habits. Everybody talks about cold plunges these days, but I want to know,
Yeah.
like, what are some things that personally for you have made a really big difference and given you like more energy, more vigor in the workplace to be more successful?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I cut out this past year was alcohol completely. So I've really made a kind of promise to myself to really cut that out because I have such an abundance of stuff at this point, right? I'm lucky enough. I have so much good going on. If anything, I need to cut my bad habits out. So that's where I'm really focused this year is cutting the like I love the Jordan Peterson clip if you ever watched it. What's the dumbest thing you do and stop doing that? And I'm like, now I'm just going down the list of like, okay, what's the dumbest thing I do? And it might be, hey,
Hmm.
you have a 50-gram sugar. latte each morning, or it might be this or that. And so, like, really taking inventory on the bad things I'm doing this year, like health wise more so than anything. In my personal life, I'm lucky where I have my girls, and my youngest just celebrated her fifth, and I was going through the photos, and I'm like, shoot, the kid held a crocodile. She got to walk a llama this year.
Mm.
So like I was going down through all the stuff, like going through ice castles. Like I'm lucky that I'm able to help provide that for her, but I'm also lucky that I get to experience it with her too. So like I don't have a job where I'm on the road nine times out of 10. It's like, no, I'm here on weekends, weeknights. I usually put in 12, 13-hour days, but I do think that people that are like, oh, work life balance, I don't think you have balance in that. I think it's you work to have your life, and the balance comes just on the lack of bad things, the double negatives, if you will, like just preventing the terribleness. Because I've seen both
Mhm.
extremely wealthy and extreme poverty be miserable. I think the answer is somewhere in the middle, but I think time balance is something that's a little bit of a myth. If maybe that's a limiting belief, but yeah.
No, I think thinking that time is limiting is a limited belief. I think your perspective is very, very open-minded and very abundant, and I love that. And plus, I mean, they're growing up seeing work ethic, they're seeing commitment, they're seeing the ability not to live a robotic life, but have a life that kind of has it all. So I love that you're sitting down, you're looking through pictures, and man, that's one of those things. It's funny, like it's easy to drop that ball, but when you can say, look, like the business is doing well, but I also didn't drop like the family ball, being there, creating those memories, like that's in my world, like better than any commission you'll ever get. So that's great.
Oh, 100%. It's the littlest things you never imagine after the fact too. One of the pictures I still look back on is my oldest when she was like 3 or 4 with a little Lego version of my office, because farmers would have these Legos that probably 10, 15 blocks, and you put them together and it makes a farmer's office. And her next to it, just so proud, like, "Hey, that's my dad's office." I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, my son pops into my computer and I come in, it's all messed up. He's trying to play Roblox on my computer, and then one day he was like, "Can you teach me how to work?" And I was like, yeah, I can. It's like, where do you start with a 5-year-old, you know? But it's really cool to see those moments. Um, you know, or like
I'm s
our parents, right? Maybe a little bit different style, but I'm sure that you picked up a lot of these traits from mentorship or parents or whatever. So it's really important. It's important to keep the whole thing in balance. It's an imbalance balance, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm so interested to see how this generation grows up with all that's going on today, but more so the digital age, right? Because I think you and I probably came in when AOL was like, "Oh my god, we have chat rooms and
Oh yeah.
emails," and like that was the latest and greatest. Now it's expired, and people eh, I'd be surprised if they use chat rooms on gaming. Uh, long story short, I look and try to play it into the future, and it's like, oh, is it going to be like that movie Wally, where everybody's in virtual realities? And it's funny because just
Mm,
like our parents before us, I don't think we know exactly how to adapt them, aside from just doing equip them with the soft skills that I found are is not everybody has in this day and age. Like if you can do anything, like I know you're big on training, if you can equip people with the soft skills, that's 100% more valuable than a lot of other things out there. You can give them all the technology in the world. You can tell them what to say, have the right scripts, but if they're not able to pivot when that person's like, because people on the other end of the phone don't have a script. They can say whatever they want, and they
yep.
usually do. So being ready to pivot on that and steer the conversation or whatever have you, that's invaluable.
Yeah, and like I love that you bring up like the AOL chat rooms once existed, and like nowadays, like virtual reality, augmented reality, messenger, automations, all this technology we have. I always like to say like the perfect marketing is that you got to understand your message and your medium. Like the message is
Mm.
like, what am I going to say? And the medium, is it text? Is it email? Is it a direct mail? Is it a social media content post? But you're right, like that immersion is something that'll be really fun to watch our kiddos when they're like, I'm looking for it. I'm waiting for the first person to close a big deal in virtual reality. And I've been tempted to go like join virtual reality and try to walk around in these virtual spaces and like find a client, pitch them and try to close them. And I imagine a day when that'll be happening, you know? So it's going to be a really interesting next few decades for sure.
Oh, definitely between that, between the currencies and like all the different like Bitcoin and all that stuff. Like it's going to be such an interesting world. I don't know that I'm prepared for it, but heck, it's going to be fun.
Here we go. Um, well, before we wrap up, because we're coming up sort of on the end today, this has been an absolutely incredible episode, and I want to borrow from Dave a question that he's asked in the past, and it's if you were to leave one message, one legacy, be remembered for one thing, right? At sometime in the future, 50 years from now, 100 years, 1,000 years, like what is the one thing that you'd want people to remember and learn from Keith Collins?
Uh, that's a good question. So probably say it starts with gratitude. Like if you're thankful for what is there, like if you're trying to be successful and like I love to venture in that realm with the Tony Robbins and those guys and really self-empowerment where it really starts with focus on what you have and it'll grow, right? If you're thankful for it and you're like, "Oh man, this is so awesome that I have this opportunity." Kind of going back to an agent, right? Seeing, wow, I get to sell policies to people. I can hire people, things of that nature. Like if you're grateful for it, it'll grow. If you're poking holes on all the, "Oh, man, I got this or that," guess what? You're poking holes in your own ship and probably sink. So I don't know that that's a full answer other than just like I I've always taken the philosophy I'll probably not be remembered in 150, 200 years, 1,000 years, and but it'll kind of have that pebble in the water effect where ripple and one thing will lead to the next and the next, and it won't have names attached to it, but it'll have effects, if you will.
Mm.
So I really think it starts with gratitude.
That's beautiful. I appreciate that. And I see that if you guys aren't following Keith Collins, I know you're for sure on Facebook. Where else can people find you? Because I love your content that you put out.
Oh, appreciate you. Yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. My team's really good about making me do crazy stuff. So you usually get on there, have a crazy idea, and we execute within a day. So none of the stuff is usually heavily scripted.
That's the best kind of content anyway. That's incredible. Awesome. Well, if anybody wants to reach out to you, is Facebook the best place? Is it one of those social media handles? Do you want to, is there any other place where they can reach out and connect with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll give out my personal cell. It's 518-951-9483. When it comes down to it, I'm an open book too. I love seeing people at all the different places. I mean, we're a small, big industry, if you will. Financial services. I feel like everybody knows everybody. So it's cool to just get to talk and talk shop and see what's working, not working, and everybody succeeding.
Beautiful. I love that. I love when people are like, "You're gonna put your cell phone number out," and I'm looking at people that do that because I'm one and the same. And it's like, yeah, I want this thing to ring. I want it to be somebody I've never met before. Like, let's go. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. No heck. And yeah, I mean, if anybody in Minnesota is looking to partner up, start an agency, I'm always willing to there too. But heck, I know 9 times out of 10, it's just like, hey, let's talk insurance.
Absolutely. Well, Keith, this has been incredible, and I just want to thank you very, very much for your valuable time and for putting so much into this to bring so much value to so many people out there. And whether you're watching live or you're watching the restream, I would encourage you to watch this one back, take a lot of notes, because everything from the mindset to the strategies and also the lessons that Keith's had, both working inside the agency and looking down outside and consulting within the agency, is just such a unique perspective. And I'm super grateful for your time. So thank you everybody so much for being here. This has been another amazing episode of Ask the Experts, where we come to you every single Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, bringing industry experts and knowledge so you can go out there and get a little bit better every single week. Hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week, an awesome weekend, and we'll see you back here next Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Keith, thank you so much again, man. Great having you on
Thank
today.
you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.